Hey guys, it's Steve Huff from Steve Huff Photo. It's been about a month since I made a video and I'm back, and today I want to talk about the Leica SL2. I have one in hand. I've had it for about 4 days. Unfortunately, I only have this for 5 days. I have to send it back tomorrow. So this is not a full whiz-bang review. I posted a 3,500 word article on my website at stevehufphoto.com that talks about the SL2, compares it to the SL1, even an ISO comparison against an Olympus EM5 Mark III with surprising results. I'll show you those images here as well, but I just want you guys to know this is not in any way a thorough, detailed technical review. I'm going to talk about the SL2 from my perspective, and I have owned the original SL over these last 4.5 years almost constantly. I've shot thousands of frames with the original SL, and the way I shot the original SL was always with M-mount lenses via my NovaFlex adapter, mostly Voigtlander lenses. I also have a couple of lenses here I want to show you guys that are pretty cool. Here is a TT Artisan's lens. This is a Leica M-mount lens, all metal construction, and what's really impressive is you can see there's brass used in the construction. I will be honest as I can be. Not only does this kind of look like an authentic Leica lens in many ways, it feels about as well built as a Leica lens. In build, this aperture ring feels much nicer than my Voigtlander lenses. The focus ring feels really smooth, and the construction is amazing. It feels like a 50 Summilux, right? This is a 21 f1.5. And this comes in at around 400, I think 400 bucks. How much would a 21 1.4 be from Leica? I think they're around 8 grand. The good news is this is cheap. It's 400 bucks for a 21 millimeter M-mount f1.5. The bad news is it doesn't render like a Leica, but you should know that for the price, right? But for the price, for the $400, this is a pretty amazing lens, this 21 millimeter f1.5 from TT Artisans. I also have a 35 1.4 from TT Artisans, which looks strikingly similar to the Leica 35 f1.4 Summilux. And here it is on the SL2. Now, this lens, again, it has that same amazing build quality and design and feel and heft, but the image quality is nothing like a 35 f1.4 Summilux. $450 for the 35. They will give you sort of a gentler, lower contrast, a little bit softer rendering from what you see from Leica. Also, a little softer and less contrast than what you see from Voigtlander. So I would say these TT Artisans are beautiful, and while they're cheap, they are a step under Voigtlander these days and a few steps under Leica. But if you just spent thousands of dollars on a Leica body and you need a lens to get you started, you can buy an adapter and throw one of these TT Artisan lenses on and be happy until you can afford to buy a real Leica M-mount lens or a Leica SL lens, something like a 35 or 75 Summicron, right? These TT Artisan lenses, they just came in. There's a few images I may overlay here while I talk to show you the quality of these lenses. Not bad at all for the money, but the build, feel, design, and use of these really blew me away for the money. So take a look at these TT Artisans. I'll have a link in the description below if you're interested, and that'll take you to more information. Now back to the SL2. I've shot the SL1 for years. I loved it. I loved the high resolution. I think it was a 4.4 megapixel EVF. I love the long battery life. I love the simple menus. I love the fact that I can shoot my Voigtlander lenses on the SL1 without any issues and get beautiful results, beautiful color, no issues with the lenses, right? I use a NovaFlex adapter and I slap these M-mount lenses on. And some people will say, well, why not get an M? Why not get an M10, Steve? And I've had an M10. I've had many M's over the years. But ever since I started using the SL, I have to admit that the EVF spoiled me for ease of focusing M-mount lenses. I love shooting manual focus. I love being in control of the process. I love being in control of what my image will look like. Manual focus in a camera like the SL1 allowed me to do that. The SL2 will allow you to do that as well because you can mount your M-mount lenses, and this time you can have IBIS, 5-axis image stabilization, in-body image stabilization, and your M-mount, even off-brand like Voigtlander or these TT Artisans, will be stabilized with the camera. You just have to go in and set up a lens profile. So if I'm shooting the 35 TT Artisans 1.4, I'll set it to a 35-1.4 Summilux. Then the image stabilization works and is on, and it is beautiful, especially for video. I shot some video in low light last night. We had a fire, we were roasting marshmallows, and I turned the SL onto its video mode. I put the TT Artisan lenses on there. I think I had the 21-1.5, and I could see that IBIS gently working, and it wasn't offensive. Like some cameras get jerky and get too smooth. This looked really good, so it impressed me. The SL2 is enhanced over the SL1 in many ways. It has a nice grip, a little indent in the grip where your fingers lie, right? And this feels really good. You wouldn't think that it would make that much of an improvement, but it really does. Maybe you can see it better here, right? So there's a little indent here, and you put your hand there and it just feels so much better than the original even. Now, the original I never had any complaints with in the grip, but this little enhancement really makes a big difference. What else? We now have the 5+ megapixel EVF, which is even sharper and more detailed than the original SL. But truth be told, when looking through both, they're not that different. The original was so nice and so amazing that this jump up is nice, but it's not like a game-changing kind of thing. You still have your porthole EVF. It looks and feels just like an SL. You have a leatherette cover on the front, and on the back, the design has changed somewhat because you now have menu buttons like the M10 here, labeled 3 buttons, where the old version you had unlabeled buttons here. I prefer the old way, but that's what I'm used to, right? I'm just one of those guys who have used it for so long, I am so used to that old method. But if I started using this, I would get just as used to this, and truth be told, it's a little bit simpler, right? So you have this giant LCD screen, it's touchscreen, beautiful. Your battery's the same on the bottom, it goes on the bottom, it uses the same battery. You have the joystick, you have all the same controls of the original SL. So basically, why would you go buy an SL2 if you have an SL1? Or you're thinking about buying one or the other, because you could still buy an SL1 and you can get that for $2,000 to $2,500 less than an SL2, brand new with warranty, right? So what are the pros and cons here? The SL2 offers the better grip, the better feel for those who care about the way a camera feels. It looks a little nicer and sleeker. It has that leatherette covering on the front, which I've grown to prefer over the bare metal of the original. It has 5-axis in-body image stabilization. It has the touchscreen LCD. Video specs have jumped up. Now, this is not a review. I've only had this for a few days. I can't do a full review of it, so I'm not digging into the video, but this shoots at 5K, shoots at 4K, 10-bit video. The video specs are massively improved, and when you add the 5-axis in there, it makes your video footage look really nice. So the SL2 is definitely a step up in the video department. 47 megapixel sensor, more detail. There's no AA filter, so you're going to get that crispness that you see from Leica images, right? That color, that nice smooth quality. And I'll throw up a couple images here as I talk from the SL2, but you're getting the 47 megapixel sensor, the better video capabilities, improved weather sealing, which means you can be confident going out in a rainstorm, especially if you have an SL lens that is also weatherproof attached to the camera. So that's always good to see as well. You have a new Maestro 3 processor, which speeds up everything. If you attach an SL lens, you're going to get faster, more consistent autofocus than the original, which is also a very good thing. The cons, the battery life is going to be lower because you're now powering a higher res EVF, you're powering that in-body image stabilization, higher res video, higher res sensor. It uses the same battery, so you're going to get less battery life from the SL2 versus the SL1. That just comes along with the package because they use the same battery. Not a big deal. You're still getting decent battery life. The part that gets to me is because it's using the 47 megapixel sensor, your low light shooting in really low light and high ISO, and I'm talking high ISO here, 6400, 10,000, 12,800, 25,600. Use this camera in low light at those ISOs, and for me, it's not usable. It makes, I will say, 6400 on the SL2 looks a lot like ISO 51,200 on the Panasonic S1, which is of course a 24 megapixel sensor, thus giving you much better low light capabilities. Now, I turn off noise reduction on every camera I use or test, and when I turned off the noise reduction, which already seemed baked into the RAWs, because when I opened up a RAW file from the SL2 into Adobe Camera Raw, it automatically had noise reduction applied. When I turned off that noise reduction, the noise just came in, even at ISO 2500. Here's a shot at ISO 2500 along with a crop. And I was starting to think, this kind of reminds me of the noise levels of Micro Four Third. So I pulled out my EM5 Mark III and I shot a comparison at the same ISO with the same lighting. Lo and behold, they look very similar. So Micro Four Thirds is trashed all the time because of its lack of a low light capability. But here the SL2 is performing when noise reduction is off on both cameras. They're performing about the same, and that is because there's more megapixels on the same size sensor. So if you have a 24 megapixel full frame and a 47 or a 60, the higher you go, the worse the low light performance will be when you're not using noise reduction. I don't use noise reduction because it tends to smear details, and I never liked that look, though you can add slight noise reduction to the SL2 and it will look really, really nice. So 14 stops of stated dynamic range from Leica. The build quality of the SL2 is astounding. There's not a camera on Earth in 35mm full frame world built like an SL or an SL2. There just isn't. You can go to Sony a7R IV, it's not going to feel the same, it's not built the same. And I don't want to offend other cameras or put down other cameras, but in the build department, the SL2 makes something like the a7R Mark IV from Sony feel toy-like. When you hold the SL2, it feels like a professional, serious tool that will last you for 50 years. That's what it feels like. I mean, we know the technology won't last for 50 years, but it is so well made and boosts your confidence. It inspires you, gives you pride of ownership, and that's what you pay for with a Leica. You're paying for the heritage, the name, you're paying for the build quality, the quality of the images, the simplistic use, the easy menus, and the overall amazing positive user experience, right? That's what you get from a Leica. That's what you get for your money. Now the SL2 is $6,000, not chump change by any means, but remember the SL1, which now has a lot less than the SL2, when it came out it was $7,500 for the body only. If you wanted it with the 24-90 kit lens at the time, it was like $10,500. The SL2 with the IBIS added, with the higher res EVF, with the higher res sensor, with the new ergonomics and the cleaner menus and the updated video specs and weather sealing, it's $59.95. So it's coming in around $1,500 less than the original did 4.5 years ago. I loved and adore, and I still love and adore the original SL. I would buy one today if I had spare money laying around. I sold it recently when I bought the Sigma FP because the FP was bringing a little bit better results in low light, a lot better results in low light. But truth be told, the SL and the SL2 are just so much more fun to use. It will make you want to grab it and go out and use it. That's what a Leica does for me. That's what a Leica does for many of us. So if you've been eyeballing the Leica SL2, it's a fantastic choice. I won't be buying one because the low light capabilities are not what I can use for what I shoot, but I'm one of the few out there who shoot in really low light on a consistent basis. So I more prefer the 24 megapixel bodies. But for everyone else, the SL2 is one of the finest 35mm full frame cameras that have ever been built or made, right? It's beautiful, it's fun to use, it's easy to use, it's simple, and it kind of makes you look at other cameras like, what are they doing? What is Canon doing? What is Nikon doing? What is Sony doing? What are all these other companies doing? The way they make cameras is just different from everyone else. It's just a different look, a different experience, a different level of quality. And while many people rant about Leica, they're too expensive, they're too this, you're getting the same image quality, there's much more to using a camera than image quality alone. Sure, a Sony can match the image quality of a Leica, a Canon can match the image quality. They're all going to have their differences in color, but at the end of the day, none of them will feel like a Leica when you're using them. And that's a huge part of the equation, right? When you use a camera, when you're a passionate photographer, whether you're a pro or you're an amateur or you're an enthusiast, you like the feel and use of the camera. So highly recommend the SL2. With those little niggles, make sure you are aware the battery life will be a little less than the SL1. The uber low light if you turn off noise reduction, you're going to get more noise than a 24 megapixel sensor. So keep that in mind, and I can't think of anything else that I've encountered. These cameras are built to last. The SL1 I've never had a problem with. Over 4.5 years, I've owned 3 of them, never had a problem with any of them. I know 2 or 3 people who still shoot an SL, never had a problem with them. So if the SL2 continues with that rock solid tradition where you don't have to worry about the thing breaking down, that's amazing, because you can buy one and not have to worry about upgrading for another 4 or 5 years when the SL3 comes out. So that was my first look and thoughts of the Leica SL2. I hope you enjoyed it. There's links in the description below to more information on everything I talked about, including the TT Artisan lenses. And I'll have more on those later. I'm going to use these more and more over the next 2 weeks. And I'll have a video on the TT Artisan lenses for anyone interested. So if you like what I do, thumbs up and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.